Welcome back to Let's Talk Tuesday. This is the podcast where we have real conversations about learning, leadership, and what it truly takes to help people and organizations grow. Each week, we bring together different perspectives, experiences, and voices to explore what learning development really means, why it matters, and how we can do it better. Today, we have a very special guest, Rachel Williamson from Columbus, Ohio, who has over 30 years of experience in retail consulting, leadership development, and transformation. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Amanda. It's very fun to be with you and your audience today.
I'm excited to talk with you. Tell us a little bit about your background and what your focus is today.
So, I've spent the last 30 years working in retail. I actually started in the front line at 16 years old, just as a sales associate at Papagallo, which was an ultra preppy retail brand, locally owned, which I loved. And I quickly got promoted to be the store manager. And I worked my way through college. And so retail was how I did that. And what I realized was while I was going to school to be a lawyer, what I realized was that I was actually really good at retail. And when I finished school, I had the opportunity to get a really great job to be a buyer, a men's buyer for a retail brand, and I did that for 3 years. And then my career just took off, just doing the field side, and then I switched over to the corporate side, and then I did transformation, which was not probably the hardest part about retail, but a reality for everyone in retail. You know that there's lots of disruptors out there that can cause retail brands to struggle a bit. And so I was grateful for the experience to do transformation. And then I've been a retail consultant, owning my own practice called Running Great Stores. And I started that in 2019, and I've been doing it ever since. So just 7 years now. And I really love it. I really
That's
love being able
amazing.
to help retailers do it better and solve problems and be the fresh eyes to their business.
That's amazing. So we have guests from all different backgrounds and experiences. What does learning and development mean in your world?
Gosh, I feel like just as humans, we should always be learning and developing. I'm a big reader, and I raised my daughter to kind of love the idea of reading and learning, and you're never done, even though she went through undergraduate school and graduate school and all the years of college, and she is an avid learner, and I'm excited to see it because I really believe that. I think in retail, because of the nature of the business, we always have enormous turnover. And so, as a store manager, as a district manager, as a regional learning manager, I found myself constantly needing to train the team because the store experience and the volume the store could really do was somewhat dependent on how effective the store teams were. And so I learned quickly that I needed to be really good at L&D, and I needed to be really good at just bringing that content to life in a way that made people feel engaged and excited about it. And so it's really been a personal goal and then a reality of the work that I do. And I even with my consulting, I mean, one of the things I find is you can't launch a concept and leave it. So, learning and development is not a moment in time. It is not a classroom setting. It is not something that happens one time. And if that's how you're thinking about it, then what I hope will encourage you to think a little differently about is the classroom session or the training itself is this one moment. And then what does that follow up look like? Because that is where the real traction takes place. And this is what I spend so much time helping my clients understand. We can't just launch the great work we've done together and then expect it to take root. We have to, water and fertilize and do all the things that cause, those roots to get deep and the team to really excel in whatever it is that we're teaching them to do.
Yeah, in L&D, we talk about the stay away from the one and done, right? Events, and what you're talking about, the pull through is how does every aspect of the design, like how are we making sure that this is, we also like to say sticky, right? That we're pulling
Yeah.
it through and that we're continuing it throughout. You touched a little
Yes.
bit about this, but What makes learning development so important, especially in today's world? Like you've spent 30 years in retail. So what's different today?
I don't know that other than, you've got Chat GPT or Claude or all of these chat tools that make us sound like better writers than we are, that probably help you create training depending on how good you are at dropping prompts in there and ensuring that you really get what you need. I think that's a really big change. I remember creating every bit of training from scratch, sitting there for hours and hours and hours, and I'm sure you did as well.
Yeah.
And there's a fine line on how I think AI tools get used, but I do think that they can be really helpful. So I do think that's a significant change when I think about creating training. I still think for high quality training, there's quite a bit of a lift that you need to do. Things that chat doesn't know. It's just regurgitating what it's been taught. Uh, so I think that's changed. But I think what hasn't changed is the need to just not assume that your team knows it, gets it, will execute it. Telling someone something once is not training.
Right.
And
Exactly.
so I don't think it was training at my first store manager job at 17 years old. And I don't believe it's training today,
Hmm.
with the consultants, the clients rather that I work with as a consultant. And I don't know if 50 years from now, if that'll be any different, you know?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's people. It was people then, it's people now, it's people in the future. But I will say you hit on something really important about development of training and the thinking about training. And I will say that one of the things that scares me the most, and I talk about like AI as not a replacement, but as an enhancement tool. The thing
Mhm.
that I worry about is the people who don't really know and they type in, let's say a prompt, or they type in like, create me a training on time management. The problem with that is that they're not savvy enough. They don't know the topic enough to be able to know when either the AI is misleading you or in real life, a lot of the consulting that we do, and I'm sure for your clients as well, is they think they know what they need, but they really need a consultant to understand what the root problem is, not the symptom issue. And so what happens is that especially when you have people who can just be like, oh, I'll just go do this thing real fast. Not only are they not thinking about the learner experience, they're not savvy in like the ways of it of creating experiences and by design, intentional design. They may also miss the real issue, which is what problem are we actually solving for? And are we just training people who are overworked and overwhelmed on time management when really it might be a leadership gap, a communication issue, like you said, a culture, right? Transformation of how do we
Yeah.
shift this through? And so that's the thing that worries me is people have more resources and tools than ever, but I think there's I know human psychology very well. I've studied it. I have 2 degrees in it. And the more choices people have, the less they're able to decide. And I think that's part of the problem we're running into now is like information overload. And that's why you
Mhm.
would still need that expert, that guiding hand, is because a lot of times they don't know where to even start. They don't even know how to know if what they're doing is going to move the mark, right? And get the result that they're looking for.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And on two specific things. The first one is I find this is hilarious. Potential clients reach out to me and say, this is my problem. This is what I asked Chat GPT, and this is what it told me. What do you think of that? And I'm like, well, what I think of it is how dangerous it is because number one, is that the root cause of the problem? So exactly what you just said.
Oh,
And
I'm
this
glad
is
they're reaching out to you to
typically,
ask instead of just
yeah,
assuming, right? Because I think a
that's
lot of
right.
people who don't know better or don't have someone like you in their corner will just type it and be like, okay. And then they go do that thing. And then they're like, wait a second, why didn't I get the result that I needed to get?
That's right. And I think the other piece is they don't necessarily know how to implement. And that goes back to your comments around expertise and
Mhm.
understanding that creating a solve to what we hope is the right problem is
Mhm.
one thing.
Mhm.
Understanding how to implement that, how to thread it through the organization, how to identify behavior changes, how to follow up after it's been launched, and what to look for and what to look at. Those are all critical pieces. And frankly, AI can't do it for you. I do think that AI can be very helpful. I think I've spent more time this last week helping a couple of clients understand how to prompt AI. I'm like, if you're going to use it,
Yeah,
can you
use it
use it
right.
right?
Yes.
Can you create a GPT? Can you,
Yeah.
can you
Yeah.
upload all the information? Like at least use it the right way.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. And I think it's dangerous to um, think that AI is replacing people. In fact, some sub consultants of mine said to me, are we going to get replaced? And I said, the work that we do is not replaceable by an AI chatbot, but there are components to the work we do that a chatbot could be doing,
Right.
freeing us up to do the things that only we can do. And that's
Exactly.
the line for
Yeah.
us on how do we leverage an AI chatbot to do work that, more administrative type of work that we shouldn't really be spending our hourly rate on for the
Right.
client. And so that type of work allows us to reduce the hourly rate to the client, ensuring that what they're paying for is the work that a chatbot can't do. And we're very transparent about how we do that. But I think when the day is done, you could kid yourself into thinking that the chatbot is just as smart as people because it does spit out information. What's critical, though, is to really review that information for accuracy, because so much of what it spits out, like I had another client send me something a few weeks back, and I said, well, this is really dangerous and don't do it. Hello, lawsuit waiting to happen.
Yeah.
So chat doesn't know what it doesn't know either, right?
Right.
And it only knows what it's been trained to know, and it may or may not be accurate. So we all have to be careful there. I think one of the big things that when I think about learning and development, whether it's me doing it, leading a team, teaching an organization, is these four components called tell, show, let, and coach.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I've been teaching a store manager team and one of my clients out west has been the power of that. So it's great to tell someone what it is that they need to do.
Yeah.
It's then great to show them what that looks like.
Hmm.
The let them portion, though, should be about 70% of it. People learn by doing,
Yeah.
and then allowing them to learn that, and then going back and coaching them as you've observed what they've done and give them feedback on it. And that's really where we use sticky too. That's where the stickiness happens,
Yeah.
is in that component. And so it's been really cool to not only help them understand just an easy model to use, but showing them how that model is used in can be used in every single thing that they do,
Mhm.
it in their store, in their district, in their region, et cetera. So that's been like one of my favorite. Well, I've used it for years. I feel like lately it reared its head, and
Mhm.
I really like it. And I like seeing the light bulbs go on with field leaders that are like, oh, and it was like, which ones there do you do well? And it was super funny. This is probably common. They're really good at telling. Like
Mhm.
store managers will all tell you, I'm really good at telling. Even
Yeah.
district managers, I'm a really good teller.
Yeah.
I'm even a pretty good shower.
Yeah.
I'm not as good with the let, or I let be the last thing. I never circle back.
Yeah.
Right. And then they may or may not do it right and what have you. So it's just kind of fun to watch the light bulbs go off. And we talked about have that takeaway thing. This may very well be our little takeaway thing that we challenge
I
our
love it.
audience to use when they are done listening to this podcast. But wait to the very end, and maybe there'll
Yes,
be a fun giveaway that goes along with that.
we will. We would definitely will. What do you wish companies or retailers, because I know that's your focus, knew or did differently as it relates to learning? You kind of answered this one a little bit because this is kind of natural progression from your framework that you just shared with us.
Yes.
But what do you wish that companies or retail stores were doing differently as it relates to learning and development?
Well, gosh, I think it's a fair question. I don't want to use a broad stroke paintbrush here. I've got clients who do it really well. I have clients who struggle with it. I think if I had to be as specific as possible around the most common opportunities that I see, it's the lack of follow through and
Hmm.
follow up.
Hmm.
It's having a strategy. I'll give you an example. I recently helped a company put on their brand conference, and I love doing those. I think they're great. Uh, Not as much planning the menus, it's fine. I do that. I do all the fun giveaways and all that. But the part that I love is seeing the strategy
Hmm.
brand has for this $1 million meeting that they're putting on,
Hmm.
and looking to see how does it thread through their daily life after that conference is over, and helping them think about that long before they ever have those leaders in a room where they're teaching them. And so I think that's probably my favorite part of helping brands is how are we going to keep this alive? And it was funny, I had a client, they reached back out and wanted me to help them with something else. And I asked them what their follow-up strategy was going to be with this conference. And they're like, well, the conference is going to be really well done, so we're not going to need to worry about that. And I was like, okay, but yeah, you do.
Yeah.
That's a recurring theme
Wow.
that
Yeah.
is
It's
recurring. And
that
it's like just they
thoughtfulness.
think they spend $1 million and they're good. And it's like, no, no, the amount you spend does not equate to it's stuck. And I
Right.
understand how to apply it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And because it's that thoughtfulness, it's that foresight, it's that, planning that really makes the difference between a great conference and not, because it's the pull through. And it's like we were talking about earlier, right? It's the more you can be intentional, the more successful. And you're right. And so I've been at really intentional events that were shoestring budgets that were, thrown together, but it was thoughtful. It was thoughtful in the way it was done and had a clear strategy, clear vision. It had plan, step-by-step execution, and then it had that evaluation piece that you talk about, that we talk about a lot, is how do you iterate it? How do you continue to make it better? But how do you make sure that it was a success, right? And if you have that strategy that pulls throughout, you're golden. So you alluded to this. I don't want to leave people waiting for long. We covered a lot of ground today. Well, what is one actionable tip or takeaway that people can take today and make their tomorrow better?
I think if we're gonna live in that realm of learning and development, what I would challenge them to do is think about their most important or most recent training that they did, whether it was a development course or whatever it was. And then I want them to just sit down in the quiet of their office or the quiet of wherever they can get quiet and write down how they are seeing it play out in real life. In other words, you're going to measure, are you seeing the impact that you planned for when you said, we have to do this training? And I
Right.
want them to really think about that. And if the answer is no, I'm not seeing it, then I want them to think about what is the next thing that I need to do in order to bring this to life. That next thing could be get all the people in the room that were part of the decision making to begin with, ask them what they're seeing. Are they, maybe I'm just missing it. So be curious, ask the questions. And if the consensus is, you know what? I don't know if we're really seeing it. Then, as a team, put your heads together and say, what's one thing we will do then in order to revive it, in order to make it sticky, bring it to life, and put on your calendar, require yourselves to put on your calendar markers where you're going to keep talking to each other, talking to the team, and saying, are we seeing movement? And when you're seeing movement, yay. I'll say if it's sticking and it's demonstrated everywhere, then maybe you're good and you could move on. But I would encourage you to continue to identify ways to measure impact of this thing that you trained on that you believed was really important.
You said,
And
oh, sorry.
no, go ahead, please,
You
please.
said so many great things. I wanted to recap because there was so much gold in what you just said. It was, sitting down and actually reflecting, creating actual markers, a lot of times like 30, 60, 90, or first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and pulling that through, adding it to your calendar so that you don't forget, so that you don't get busy and forget. And the biggest one of all is that impact, right? We talk about return on investment. We talk about what was the impact? Because so often, you might find people go through the motions, and if you're pulling this through your entire organization and you're doing the training, well, maybe they're continuing to train other people. And if it did miss the mark, well, then it's missing the mark for them too, potentially, right? So it's making sure that you're making tomorrow better than the training was today.
That's right. I love
Well,
it.
thank you so much for being here. This was so fun. I really appreciate all your wisdom and guidance, and I know everyone will get a lot to benefit from making sure to put it in their calendar. So thank you.
Right. That's right. And thank you for having me. I want to just encourage our listeners, if you are people leaders, I have a new best-selling book out called 30 Days to Running Great Stores. The funny thing is, you might say, I'm not in retail. The biggest feedback I get about this book is, why is it written just for retail? There's so much in here that as a people leader, I can use. So I would encourage you to pick up a copy. You can get it on Amazon, wherever books are sold. If you get it on my website, it'll be autographed and personalized to you. And I hope you'll pick up a copy because it's just chock full of actionable things, just like what we talked about, that you can go out and do right now to have an impact on the people that you're leading.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I will put that on the website for anybody listening so that you have access to that. And again, thank you so much for being here. It was really valuable conversation.
Thanks so much, Amanda.
And with that, we'll begin to wrap up. So I hope this discussion gave our audience a few new perspectives, sparked some ideas, and left you with at least one takeaway you can put into action immediately. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and join us every Tuesday as we continue exploring learning, leadership, and what it takes to help people and organizations grow. And if today's conversation resonated with you, or if you'd like to join me for a future episode, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and let's talk again on Tuesday. Thanks, everyone.